Joe Roy Metheny, man who committed some of the most heinous and bizarre crimes in American history, is infamous not only for his murders, but also for the gruesome way in which he claimed to have disposed of his victims' bodies. Metheny, who came to be known as the Cannibal Killer, claimed to have served human flesh mixed with pork at his roadside food stand, turning unsuspecting customers into unwilling participants in his dark world of depravity. This story is not just about a man who killed for pleasure or revenge. It is also about the deeper psychological issues that drove his actions, his upbringing in a dysfunctional family, and the systemic failures that allowed him to live undetected for so long. In this exploration of Joe Metheny's life and crimes, we will uncover how a once seemingly normal man became a monstrous figure, preying on the most vulnerable members of society. Joseph Roy Metheny was born on March 2, 1955, in Baltimore, Maryland, into a troubled family. His upbringing was marred by dysfunction, neglect, and violence. His father, an alcoholic, died in a car accident when Joe was just 6 years old, leaving his mother to care for the family. Joe's mother worked multiple jobs to make ends meet, which meant that Joe and his 5 siblings were often left to fend for themselves. In later interviews, Metheny would claim that his mother abandoned him and his siblings, leaving them to live in foster homes, though his mother has denied these allegations, stating that while she worked hard, the children were never neglected. Metheny's mother described him as a good student and relatively normal child. But according to Joe, his early life was a breeding ground for the anger and resentment that would later manifest in his criminal activities. He claimed to have been emotionally neglected and to have experienced significant trauma, though these claims have been difficult to verify. Neglect and trauma in childhood are often linked to the development of antisocial behavior in adulthood. Metheny's upbringing in a volatile and unstable environment likely contributed to his emotional instability and violent tendencies later in life. Studies on serial killers frequently reveal childhood abuse or neglect as key factors in shaping the adult psychopath. While Metheny's mother denied any wrongdoing, the disconnect between her version of events and his narrative indicates a possible deep-seated perception of victimhood on Metheny's part, which may have fueled his desire for revenge against those he perceived as having wronged him. By the time Metheny was in his late teens, he had already begun showing signs of antisocial behavior. After dropping out of school, he joined the military in the early 1970s. Though records are unclear as to whether he served in Vietnam, claim Metheny made later in life. His time in the military has been a subject of debate, with no definitive proof that he saw active combat. However, the experience of serving in a high-stress, violent environment, if truthtold, have further damaged his psyche. Upon leaving the military, Metheny struggled to reintegrate into civilian life. He became heavily involved in drug and alcohol abuse, which exacerbated his already volatile mental state. Metheny spent much of the 1980s and early 1990s homeless, living in makeshift camps with other transients in Baltimore. His heavy use of alcohol, cocaine, heroin, and other substances further eroded his sense of morality and humanity, leading him deeper into a life of crime. Metheny found work as a truck driver, which provided him with an income, but also allowed him to travel frequently, making it easier for him to commit crimes without drawing attention to himself. He would later use his transient lifestyle as a way to lure victims, many of whom were homeless, drug-addicted, or vulnerable women. Metheny's first known brushes with violence occurred in the early 1990s, though it is believed that he may have committed crimes before this. In 1994, Metheny was arrested and charged with assault after attacking a man with an axe. The charges were later dropped, but this incident marked the beginning of his downward spiral into increasingly violent behavior. Around this time, Metheny's life took another dark turn. His girlfriend, who was also addicted to drugs, left him, taking their 6-year-old son with her. This event is often cited as the catalyst for Metheny's violent outburst, as he claimed that his rage and feelings of abandonment drove him to seek revenge not only against his girlfriend, but against others as well. Metheny's first confirmed murder occurred in 1994, when he killed 39-year-old Kathy Magaziner, prostitute whom he had lured to his trailer under the pretense of paying her for sex. After strangling her to death, Metheny buried her body in a shallow grave near his trailer. This murder marked the beginning of his pattern of targeting vulnerable women, often prostitutes or drug addicts, whom he viewed as easy prey. Metheny left Magaziner's body buried for more than 2 years before returning to the site, digging up her remains and retrieving her skull. This disturbing behavior, in which Metheny kept a part of his victim as a trophy, is a hallmark of many serial killers, indicating a desire to control and relive the murder long after the act has been committed. In 1995, following the disappearance of his girlfriend and son, Metheny embarked on a killing spree that would solidify his reputation as one of America's most twisted serial killers. He lured 2 homeless men to a secluded area near a bridge in South Baltimore, where he attacked them with an axe, killing both in cold blood. He later claimed that his primary motive was revenge. He believed these men knew the whereabouts of his missing girlfriend, though there is no evidence to suggest this was true. Later that same year, Metheny lured 2 prostitutes, Kimberly Spicer and Toni Ingrassia, to his trailer. He murdered Spicer by stabbing her repeatedly and dismembering her body. He kept her remains in his freezer, later using parts of her body in a grotesque manner, serving her flesh mixed with pork at his roadside barbecue stand. Ingrassia, however, managed to escape, becoming a key witness in Metheny's eventual arrest. Perhaps the most horrifying aspect of Joe Metheny's crimes was his alleged cannibalism. Metheny claimed that after killing his victims, he would butcher their bodies, grind up the meat, and mix it with pork, which he then used to make burgers that he sold to unsuspecting customers at his food stand. While the truth of these claims has never been fully verified, the mere possibility of such acts shocked the nation and cemented Metheny's legacy as a monstrous figure capable of unspeakable evil. The concept of cannibalism in serial killers is often associated with a desire for ultimate control over the victim. By consuming their flesh, Metheny symbolically extended his dominance over his victims, even after their deaths. This act also reveals a deep level of dehumanization. He viewed his victims not as people, but as objects to be used and discarded. Joe Metheny's reign of terror came to an end in December 1996, when police arrested him in connection with the disappearance of Kimberly Spicer. A friend of Metheny's, Rita Kemper, had narrowly escaped from his trailer after he attempted to kill her. Kemper's testimony, combined with evidence linking Metheny to Spicer's murder, provided enough grounds for his arrest. Following his capture, Metheny confessed to the murders of multiple individuals, including Kathy Magaziner and several others whose names he could not recall. His confessions were chilling in their lack of remorse. Metheny openly admitted to killing out of rage and a desire for control. In a shocking twist, he also claimed to have mixed his victims' flesh with pork and served it to customers at his food stand, a revelation that horrified the public and made Metheny infamous overnight. What set Metheny apart from many other serial killers was his willingness to confess his crimes in great detail. During police interrogations, Metheny displayed a chilling lack of emotion, speaking matter-of-factly about the murders as if they were routine tasks. He showed no remorse for his victims and even seemed to take pleasure in recounting the details of his crimes. He claimed to have killed as many as 10 people, though authorities were only able to link him definitively to 3 murders: those of Kathy Magaziner, Kimberly Spicer, and Toni Ingrassia. The rest of his confessions remained unverified, either due to lack of evidence or because the bodies had never been found. The case against him was strong, thanks to witness testimonies from survivors like Rita Kemper and the physical evidence found in his trailer and at the sites where he had buried his victims. In 1997, Metheny was convicted of the murders of Kimberly Spicer and Kathy Magaziner, along with an attempted murder charge for his attack on Rita Kemper. During his trial, Metheny's demeanor was cold and unremorseful. Joe Metheny was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole, narrowly avoiding the death penalty after a jury was unable to reach a unanimous decision on whether to sentence him to death. Despite his heinous crimes, Metheny expressed no desire to fight his sentencing. In fact, during his trial, he made statements indicating that he accepted his fate, even welcoming the idea of being executed. Metheny was housed in the Western Correctional Institution in Maryland, where he would remain until his death. Joe Metheny died in prison on August 5, 2017, at the age of 62. His case became one of the most notorious examples of cannibalism and serial murder in the United States. Let me know, what are your thoughts on this case? Do you think he actually fed customers human hamburgers? And which case would you like to see next? Till next time.